sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name is Virginia Jones, and I named this podcast because my sister is a therapist, and her name is Laura Ryan.
Hi, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, but my main credit is sister to boss of banter, Virginia Jones.
Ooh, banter boss. I tell you, I felt like a banter boss when I saw this week that we are the number 4 podcast when people are searching for Adlerian psychology.
Heck yeah, that's quite a list to be a part of. I'm sure there were so many candidates.
Also, we come up when people are looking for sisters and banter.
Okay.
So that seems fair. If you're with us because you like sisters or banter, great. If you are exclusively looking for content on Adlerian psychology, it's mostly our episode on Adlerian psychology, but we have other episodes.
Well, you pepper
Adlerian
psychology in a lot of episodes. If you like a psychologist and a comedian talking to each other, but you hate Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew, then give us a listen.
Give us a shot. So each week, one of us has a topic, springs it on the other one. One of us has done no research and one of us has done all the research. This week is Laura's topic. Laura, what are we talking about today?
This week, I'm wearing my special sweatshirt.
The only dangerous minority is the rich.
Yet again, we're going to talk about the rich. This is a listener idea. Thank you, Joseph Erickson. Hello, sisters. Rich people are insane. Here's an article to confirm my bias. So he sent us an article from Psychology Today. I'm sure saying rich people are insane is problematic, but they're doing literal Nazi S-hit while I'm freezing in a basement, second-guessing problematic language. Please discuss yours truly, Joseph Erickson, director of Class Wars, a movie that probably won't ever get funded if I keep talking S-hit about rich people. Virginia and I have both been guests on History Dance Club podcast by Joseph Erickson, so we're cross-pollinating right now.
That's right, which is exactly what the internet says to do. I don't know if I would say insane, but I would say incredibly selfish and incredibly able to separate themselves from the rest of the human race is what the rich are. They believe
I thought you were saying Joseph is incredible.
Oh, Joseph is incredibly selfish.
If you want to find out about his documentary, go to classwars.love.
And if you just Google Class Wars Joseph Erickson, you're going to find some stuff.
Also, if you want to see our podcast with him, go to History Dance Club Podcast on YouTube.
Laura, I don't know if you know this about me. You know a lot of things about me, but did you know that I used to live in Los Angeles, California?
No, this is the first time I've heard that.
And when I lived in Los Angeles, I was trying to do acting. And so you have to do 5 tiny jobs and try to make them add up to one real job. So I was doing a lot of delivery work. I would be delivering to these houses in Bel Air, Pacific Palisades, which is burned down to the ground. But I was looking at these mansions and understanding what the local real estate market is like. No one who owns these mansions could have come by the money
accidentally.
Well, not accidentally, but in a morally okay way. No one has this much money who has earned it, 1, from their own labor, not taking advantage of others, 2, has made all of their money based on their own workload and not intergenerational wealth. Basically, everyone I am delivering in and out to here is evil.
Okay. It's a sweeping example. So I'm going to start off by reading a quote from Bill Burr. It's from an article called Bill Burr Delivers Fiery Rant.
Also known as Bill Burr spends another day being a Bill Burr.
I was going to say Bill Burr opens his mouth. These effing billionaires, they need to be put down, like effing rabid dogs, Burr continues. He was doing a podcast. They're rabid with effing greed and just going out and dividing everybody. We were just talking about it. That CEO got effing whacked. What is more heartless than an effing CEO of a corporation, he said. In healthcare, the decisions that they make, this is the thing. I'm not saying what happened should have happened, but for them to be like, why would anybody do this? They're denying claims and people are dying and the food supply is poisoned. It's like the effing motive out there is so wild.
Why are we so concerned when a CEO gets whacked in public, but we don't give a rat's A when kids are killed? This was a story for weeks and it's still a story. Why did he do it? How did he do it? How could he kill this rich man? When kids get killed, it's like, oh, thoughts and prayers.
And also, I found this out. They're trying to give him the death penalty. They're trying to get him tried for the death penalty. And no mass shooter has ever been tried with the death penalty on the table.
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
That's bananas. And it just shows that rich people are a different class and they're better than us.
Is that what it shows? I think it shows that our government is inherently corrupt.
Yes. So I don't think that rich people are insane. They're evil. This is one of my favorite phrases, dark triad. Psychology's dark triad and the billionaire class, the super rich, aren't the role models we need to advance the common good. The richest 400 families in the United States own financial assets that exceed the wealth of the bottom 60% of all American households combined. And U.S. billionaires pay taxes at a lower effective rate than working class families because they have the money to lobby for lower taxes. They can get in the president's pocket. They can get in the president's ear. Billionaire Sam Zell told Bloomberg News, this country should not talk about the envy of the 1%. It should talk about emulating the 1%. Get rich or
die trying
or just die. We don't care. I'm very concerned living in a country where wealth is worshipped above all else because we really don't care where it comes from. We don't care if you're a gangster. We don't care if you are a tremendously racist rapper
or a genocidal mass murderer.
We don't care. If you have money, you're good.
You are inherently good because you have money. That's a moral high ground situation. You mentioned the dark triad, and this is the article that Joseph sent us. So thank you, Joseph. You took a lot of the legwork out of my research. The dark triad is something that we talk about in the world of narcissism. Again, Dr. Ramani often mentions the dark triad. And this is a particular flavor of narcissism that's so bad.
It's incredibly dangerous. A person with a dark triad, if I understand it, very charming and has absolutely no scruples or morality or connection to humanity, whatever.
Right. They're way more sociopathic than your run-of-the-mill narcissist. A constellation of interlinked personality traits, Machiavellianism, refers to a willingness to deceitfully manipulate and exploit people and circumstances for personal gain. So that's one leg of the triad, named after Kanye West's personal hero, Machiavelli. And then psychopathy, referring to a person's lack of empathy towards others and a tendency to behave in a callous and uncaring manner. And then the third leg is narcissism, referring to an individual's sense of superiority over other people and convictions about personal entitlement and special treatment. Originators of the term summarize it in this way. To varying degrees, all three entail a socially malevolent character with behavior tendencies towards self-promotion, emotional coldness, duplicity, and aggressiveness.
For those following along at home, duplicity is a fancy word for lying. It's interesting how many CEOs are possessors of the dark triad traits because it enables them to operate never thinking for a second, is this good? They only have to worry about, is this the thing that is going to benefit me or not?
The thought of other people or having empathy for others or interest in the outcomes of other people's lives is really antithetical to the dark triad. The problem that I have experienced with wealthier clients, I have not yet worked with anyone who has a dark triad, but I have worked with people who it seems like when you get to a certain point monetarily, you have a lot less concern about other people and their needs and feelings. I have a colleague who mostly works with more wealthy people, and she has suggested, oh, well, Laura, if you're having monetary issues, you should just charge an insane amount, and then you can have this
just rich people, right?
Right. You can have this whole world of rich people. My experiences working with incredibly wealthy people have been so unpleasant that I don't want that to be a big part of my therapy world.
Some examples of the dark triad in history include Stalin. I know we bring him up a lot, but Hitler. Mao Zedong, Mussolini, Pol Pot, Saddam Hussein, and Colonel Gaddafi. What do these all have in common?
I don't know. Do you remember that song? Gaddafi sucks. Da-da-da-da.
I was explaining that song to somebody. We were dancing at an 80s night in San Francisco, California, and they were playing West End Girls. And I was saying the morning radio show in our region, in Dallas, Texas,
Kid
Craddock show.
And
don't call yourself Kid Craddock because you will get old. And then he was 60 years old and still going by Kid Craddock, and it's sad. They did a parody of West End Girls where it says just Gaddafi sucks, and there was nothing to it. It was not clever. Just said that was the whole joke, and he played it. It felt like constantly, and
I think he did play it, which is why it's constantly in my head. If I ever hear the name Muammar Gaddafi, that song immediately pops into my head. So Kid Craddock, you did your job. Also, I believe the name is Mousy Tongue.
Yes, the tongue of a mouse. That is the great Chinese leader who was responsible for communism in China.
I remember I was making fun of our coach who could not properly pronounce his name.
Right.
So you go, hey, we're going to talk about mousy tongue today.
The noise zhe in Chinese is not something that we have really in our country. One time I was driving these 3 Chinese guys as a Lyft driver. They asked me, why does that say zhe on the street? And it was crossing. So it's like X-ing. Why does it say xing? Oh, it's crossing. But to them,
what you should have told them is, did you know that it's mousy tongue? This is talking about a lot of studies done trying to identify the dark triad in wealthy people.
Participants in the second group, now primed to see themselves as better off than others, took more candy from a jar that they were told had treats intended for children in a lab nearby. In a study involving a game of chance using the computerized rolling of dice, here too the participants higher in social class cheated more often in order to receive a modest cash prize. At Enron, officials fraudulently popped up the company's stock price, leading thousands of unsuspecting employees to lose their retirement savings when the company collapsed shortly thereafter. Who do we know who was affected by this?
We know ourselves. I think part of the fact that our father lost his whole retirement had something to do with the fact that we didn't get any sort of inheritance when he passed.
Well, and also that he lived the rest of his life broke as a joke. After a life in tech and a life in very high paid jobs, he left Enron with a box of his own possessions. It was garbage.
It was a combination of Enron plus silly choice to not pay his taxes. To the listener, if you think, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have to pay my taxes. Please pay them because they took my dad's car. They cleaned out all of our accounts and it was pretty bad. Pharmaceutical giant Purdue Pharma continued to aggressively market OxyContin for years after the company learned that the drug was highly addictive, contributing to tens of thousands of deaths from prescription opioid overdoses.
And not just deaths. These opioids we saw that destroy families, destroy whole towns as huge swaths of the population became addicted. It wasn't just that they put out this incredibly addictive drug. It's that they learned how best to promote it, surgically sent people out to the doctors that they knew were prescribing the most. It was layers and layers of intent. When it all came tumbling down, the CEO said, oh, I don't think there's anything I could have done different. I really don't think I did anything wrong. I just didn't know.
Yeah, they just didn't know.
She caused an epidemic. She destroyed thousands of lives.
So, Virginia, you have something to read.
International trade agreements, written in secret with strong corporate representation, have prioritized protecting profits for huge companies over safeguarding wages, human rights, and the environment. Perhaps this callousness is captured especially well by Amazon's billionaire CEO Jeff Bezos, who reportedly once described his negotiating approach as similar to, quote, the way a cheetah would pursue a sickly gazelle.
Does that sound Machiavellian to you or psychopathic?
We worship these rich people because they're rich without any thought of how did they get rich? Where did this money come from? It came from us, criminal.
I mean, it's quite literally criminal, but in the capitalist hellscape we live in, it's considered okay.
Jeff Bezos went on a suborbital flight that lasted for 4 minutes in a rocket, and that cost $5.5 billion.
I remember when that happened, he's jumping around with his cowboy hat on, so excited. And I just thought, do you know how many people could have benefited from that $5 billion? That's crazy.
In the opposite news, the actor Michael Sheen, who has decided that his acting is now a nonprofit activity. Any money he takes in from acting goes to charity. He paid off $1 million in debts of people in Wales because he could do it. How do we take what's wrong with Michael Sheen and put it into America's multi-billionaires?
Michael Sheen is not a billionaire. I think that's part of it. Once you cross a certain threshold, I think you do start thinking about people in a very different way. I think you stop thinking about people.
Yeah. Once you have a layer of legal protection around you, you feel that you can do anything you want. I also think there's something to keeping up with the Joneses. If I make $50,000 and my neighbor makes $55,000 and they're able to get a car that much better than my car, I can spend my life chasing them and getting into credit card debt and trying to get to their level. But then when you get to this multi-billion-dollar level, you have to take a 4-minute suborbital ride on a rocket to compete with other people. The desire to show up other people or to exceed the funds of other people, it doesn't change as you get richer. There's no point at which human nature has an inherent stop and says, hey, I have enough. I am content. My family has enough. We are safe. We have enough for the future. This is part of the mania that is America. It's never enough, and you always need more. What for? Jeff Bezos could never work again and have enough money to keep Jeff Bezos alive for 1,000 years.
Right. And Jeff Bezos' ex-wife has made it her personal mission to take all the money she makes from her former marriage and donate it. And she said, I keep trying to spend it all, but there keeps being more and more and more. I'm never going to be able to spend all this money.
I will say that Bill Gates and Melinda Gates have spent a tremendous amount of money towards solving very real problems like malaria and trying to help people. They are unfortunately currently in the minority.
Did you ever read the short story by David Sedaris, Christmas Means Giving? It's about a very wealthy couple who have a new very wealthy couple who move in next door to them. The rest of their lives are spent trying to outdo one another. Here's just a quote from the story that I find funny. When Beth asked who was at the door, I called out Code Blue, which was our secret signal that one of us should release the hounds. The Cottinghams would probably say that I unfairly stole their idea when I myself became a generous person. But this was not the case. I'd been thinking of being generous long before he showed up on the scene. And besides that, if he could illegally pinch my holiday slogan, why couldn't I casually borrow a concept that had been around for a good 10 years? When I first told people that I had given $2 to the Inner City Headache Fund, they turned away as if they didn't believe me. Then I actually did give $2 to the Headache Fund, and boy, did things ever change. It's illustrating our point.
In that way, I guess the argument is that Bill and Melinda Gates are doing charitable activities as a way to show off how much money they have.
And if anyone's keeping track, I believe Melinda Gates is also divorced from Bill because he cheated on her too. So I guess if you're a billionaire, you have to get to a certain price point and cheat on your wife.
The overarching idea of the dark triad of the super rich is that the rules don't apply to you.
Right.
And why should any rules apply to you? Why should the promise you made your wife apply to you?
Why should the rules of the government in the country that you're living in apply to you? In a study, lower class participants demonstrated a stronger compassion-related physiological response than did their upper class counterparts after watching a video of children who suffer from cancer. Individuals from a lower social class were significantly better than upper class participants at judging the emotions being portrayed when they were presented with photos of human faces.
Wow.
The researchers concluded that this enhanced ability may reflect the reality that those who are less well off must truly rely more on accurately reading their social environment because they depend more on interpersonal relationships and collaborative efforts in their daily lives.
And not to be all Barbara Streisand about it, but I think what we're here for, the reason that we are here on this planet, is to experience human relationships, to be creative, and to express our creativity to others, to use our minds and our hearts. So in that way, we're better off than the rich. You are just pursuing money to its own end. Money is not its own end. Money is a tool that you can use to make your life easier, to make your neighbor's life easier, to make your children's life easier. It's just a thing. In of itself, it's not a worthwhile pursuit.
And I remember reading a study of nurses who specialized in end-of-life care. No one ever said, I wish I'd worked more or made more money. The biggest regrets of most people who are dying is that they didn't spend enough time with their family. They didn't tell people that they love them enough. And ultimately, unless you are a sufferer of the dark triad, that is probably what's most important. But I do find it terrifying to think that once you get past a certain threshold of money, you can't read people's faces anymore.
I think you're just not thinking about people very much. It's like an annoying noise in the background, other people. So you become primarily concerned with your own issues, your own wants, your own needs. And it is very sad, and it's dehumanizing to yourself.
And it's almost like you want to be filmed standing in front of a building holding a Bible. So you tear gas a bunch of local humans who are living in an area to clear the space.
At some point, you have to think, what is this for? What need does this serve? that people know that you're rich, that your friends know that you're rich, that the world knows that you're rich. Everyone who you're scrabbling to try to impress, they're all going to die. Why are you trying to impress people who are going to die?
I don't know if I'm trying to impress them. I'm trying to show them that I'm the best because I have narcissism.
Right.
It reads like I have an inflated sense of self. But in reality, I have a deflated sense of self and I'm trying to prop it up with all this dumb stuff. Exhibit A, John Ryan.
When we were in the 90s and tech really started becoming an important part of people's lives, nerds were taking over. We didn't think it was going to look like this. We thought that nerds were going to be more thoughtful,
more compassionate because they themselves had suffered because they were nerds. From my experience, most nerds are treated pretty poorly. So to me, that would imply that they would then have empathy for people when they got to a certain point financially. But that does not seem to be shaking out.
No, it does seem like money itself. It's a cycle. Please know that I wanted to say Ouroboros and I didn't. Okay.
She showed some restraint.
I thought for a second, no, that's what you always
did it with her hands. She did it with her hands.
But it's almost as if dark triad people can make money, but also that money itself will push you into a dark triad personality.
When we're looking at chicken versus egg, I feel like in order for me to get to the point where I'm a billionaire, I had to be pretty corrupt to begin with.
In one study, for example, participants who rated themselves higher on a measure of socioeconomic status also scored higher on a scale designed to measure psychological entitlement. A sample item from that scale is, I honestly feel I'm just more deserving than others. There's a serious problem because their extraordinary wealth gives them tremendous influence over our laws, our politics, and our public square, and they're able to use their power and resources to pursue a self-serving agenda at the expense of the common good. And no time more than now, no place more than here is this happening as the president of the United States surrounds himself with his cronies and people who do feel that they're more deserving than others. Because I have all this stuff. Why do you have all this stuff? Well,
because my dad was a rich South African who exploited the people, and now I can go and raid your Social Security and take your grandma's money.
Perhaps it's something like the first time you get flown business class or first class, which sometimes, we do for work, even though every flight you've ever taken by yourself, you've flown coach. When you enter that rarefied air and someone has handed you a little towel that's been microwaved or some nuts that have been microwaved. I mean, most of first class is based on microwaving. And it's hard to imagine yourself sitting in the back with the cattle, with the hoi polloi.
With the plebs.
Perhaps that's what happens. You get to a certain level of rich and you're like, oh, I'm better than these people. How can I tell I'm better? Because people are treating me like I'm better. How can I sustain that? I need to get more access to money.
And it's funny, when I had the opportunity to fly first class to Hawaii and a couple other places because I had a boyfriend who had a lot of points, I was thinking the whole time, why the hell is this so expensive? Some warmed nuts and complimentary cheap vodka that you guys are giving me? I just don't get it. I do not get it. And I was very angry. Although the ride to Hawaii and back was pretty legit.
On a seat that you could lie down on? Yeah.
Well, it was a pod. So it went all the way down and I kind of had a little circle around me. I slept like a rock, if anyone's interested.
As someone who's flown a lot, that stuff is mostly just to establish pecking order. All those divisions where I get another 4 inches of legroom, 8 inches of legroom, and they're making coach worse.
Yeah.
So that the front seems better and better.
They're trying to establish a hierarchy. And I remember reading somewhere that people who fly in a hierarchical way, unlike a Southwest flight where everybody just grabs a seat, those people report greater anger, greater frustration, etc., when they're approached with this, I have to ride in the back mentality.
And the whole thing is around better treatment. You're right. Business class, first class, they are a shell game created by airlines to sell more expensive seats because more people are buying those seats. It used to be if you had a ton of miles and had been with an airline a long time, you would get bumped up. I got bumped up at Christmas. I still remember it today. I did have a pod.
That Buffalo Trace vodka goes down real easy.
They're creating these fake separations,
hierarchies,
and more people are paying for those seats because they perceive that they're going to have a better experience.
I think they're also feeling like, oh, I'm going to be a better person. I'm here as a part of this social club.
The best thing to do is to get a seat in coach. If you're tall, sit on the aisle, take a Xanax, go to sleep, wake up at your destination. It's just like being in first class.
You feel like you've been in a pod to Hawaii.
Being on drugs is like being in first class.
Isn't that what we told all the OxyContin people? Is that an
Real
epidemic?
first class life, chopping up OxyContin and snorting it.
So let's talk about materialism, the dark triad traits, and money management among undergraduate students. So this was a study done in Russia by Kornienko, Baleva, and Yachmeneva.
This is good because we'll be living in a country very much like Russia soon.
I think we kind of already are. Part of this article where they use the word bright to identify groups with low values of dark triad traits. So when they say bright, that means that this person have low values of dark triad traits. They're less psychopathic, they're less Machiavellian, and they're less narcissistic. The study aimed to determine the relationship between materialistic ideals and unpleasant personality characteristics. When materialism and personality characteristics are combined, we gained more evidence of the disparities in personal money management practices. Machiavellianism and narcissism were more prevalent in the bright and dark materialists than the non-materialists, and materialistic ideals were more strongly endorsed in the dark materialists. So I'm materialistic, but I am not a part of the triad.
I can tell you, my old boss, a multimillionaire, she was very new to it. She had grown up in a regular home and had a regular family, moved to the States without very much, and built an empire with her husband. Didn't seem to have a lot of empathy for other people, didn't have any empathy for her employees, would hire people on and let them go because she felt like she needed to save money. Felt like letting go of a person who she just hired was returning a sports car or a fur coat. Like, this is just some money that I need to free up. When I met her, she was like 10 years into this journey. It doesn't take very long to change a normal, quote unquote, normal person into someone with these kind of dark triad aspects.
I think the idea is that you start objectifying people and stop thinking about them as full humans. You just think of them like the couch I bought, but it just doesn't quite fit in the living room. So we're going to go ahead and return it.
Even though the couch has moved here from Seattle and left a perfectly good job.
And has a family to support, who cares?
Who cares? I've decided I want to put my money somewhere else. Regarding the dark personalities, it is possible to argue that materialism may be viewed as a strategy to obtain resources, position, and prestige at the expense of others, as shown by the specific pattern of correlation between them. Interestingly, the combination of high materialism and low dark triad characteristics resulted in the weakest financial control. So the people who were very materialistic, but were not Machiavellian, narcissistic, or sociopathic, right?
Yes.
The combination of low materialism and high dark triad qualities resulted in better money management, which gives credence to the concept that the dark triad traits might improve financial behavior. When you're taking morals out of it, you can make a lot of great money decisions. You can really make your money work for you, not you work for your money.
So if you're having difficulty saving money, have you considered taking on some dark triad traits?
Think about it.
Sam Walton was very thrifty.
Oh my gosh. Another of my old bosses, James Cash Penny.
Is that really his name?
Yep.
James
Middle name Cash.
Penny. Oh my God.
James Cash Penny, even as a millionaire, was so frugal. His wife went to the doctor, was told, you have very serious pneumonia and you need to be taking care of yourself. She took public transit home from the doctor because she knew her husband wouldn't approve of her getting a taxi, and she died. Not even because he told her she couldn't or told her she wasn't allowed. She just knew that he wouldn't approve of it. And so she's like, well, I better do the thing that costs a nickel.
Even though we're millionaires.
Even though we're millionaires. There's the showbiz example. Jay Leno talks a lot about how he's never spent any money that he made hosting The Tonight Show. He and his wife, Mavis, live entirely on the money he makes doing stand-up. What is that for? What are you saving for? Well, he's saving against the idea of being poor. Well, why do you have that fear? Well, because he was raised in this capitalist system where if you don't have money, you're not worth anything. These things all feed into each other. The fear of being poor in someone who's made a lot of money and continues to make a lot of money, it feels irrational. But when you notice how poor people are treated in this country, it makes a lot more sense.
It makes it easier to have really dark triad and very conservative spending habits. Warren G. Buffett, at age 93, is legendarily frugal. He resides in the same house in his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, that he bought for $31,000 in 1958. But he also has a beach house in California that he bought for $150,000 in 1971. He sold it for $7.5 million, down from an original listing of $11 million in 2018. His tastes otherwise are simple, and they include McDonald's hamburgers and cherry Coke. So this finding lends credence to the idea that narcissism may be the root of materialistic ownership, as previously proposed in another study. For comparison, for groups of bright materialists and dark non-materialists, more self-control, reduced impulsiveness, and boldness are correlated with a lower assessment of their success in gaining tangible possessions. In contrast, the prevalence of psychopathic characteristics in dark materialists resulted in a higher evaluation of success in terms of financial gain and a greater emphasis on material possession.
We both know that capitalism is a trap. It will cause you to work your life away and not enjoy people around you. Ebenezer Scrooge, is he a dark triad person?
Yes.
He changed his life because he realized that nobody would care for him and nobody would mourn his passing. But was he enjoying his life while he was having it? Is it enjoyable to live every second of your life trying to maximize your financial success and minimize your spending? Because it's not like he was just cheap with Bob Cratchit. He was cheap with himself.
Well, yeah, because Christmas Eve, he wanted to work late and he was unwilling to put extra logs on the fire. So he himself is freezing in his office when he's probably at the time a billionaire. So Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this very interesting topic that our friend Joseph has brought to light?
Thank you, Joseph. I think we could all use a little bit more rationality when we're thinking about who our heroes are. I do think that our current oligarchy is going to be a wake-up call to a lot of Americans that having money does not mean you are good, does not mean you are smarter than me. It does not mean you're more capable than me. It may just mean you have a combination of personality traits that makes you really able to operate outside of a moral structure. Money in of itself is just a representation of man hours exchanged for a token. It's just tokens. The fact that we have normalized worshiping people who have a lot of the tokens is really absurd to me. What are your final thoughts here?
We sort of talked about this in our previous episode, Does Money Buy Happiness? I remember reading a book by Dan Gilbert, Stumbling on Happiness. He talks about the idea that once you pass a certain threshold of income, you're actually not going to be significantly happier. And I think we all need to remember that. I was talking to my friend today and she said, everyone would want to be a billionaire. And I said, I wouldn't want to be a billionaire. And she said, well, why not? And I said, because I only need certain things. And once I get past that, I don't need to have billions of dollars. And she said, what if somebody just handed it to you? And I said, no one would just hand me billions of dollars.
Right. I think the number in the book is $80,000. It needs to be enough to cover your cost of living for you to have a home. I think of money kind of like alcohol. If you start at a 1, the first drink you have maybe takes you to a 3. I feel really good. I'm relaxed. And the second drink maybe takes you even to a 6. But then after that, it's diminishing returns. You're always chasing that feeling you had at 2 drinks. And that's how you throw up in the Satyricon bathroom.
I've never done that, but it sounds great. So to my friend, if someone did hand me $1 billion, I would figure it out. I would probably donate to a lot of charities and maybe try to end homelessness in the United States, which I find crazy that we have that. Ultimately, I don't want that much money because I believe that except for very few cases, most of the time it means I'm going to have to exploit people. And being a socialist does not square with that. Virginia, if anyone wants to find out more about your comedy career, how would they go about doing that?
You can find me at www.bidinia.com. And that's got everything. It's got humorous essays, promotions of future events. It's got a link to my album and everything else that I've done on the internet. But you can also find me at good old Instagram, putting money in Zuckerberg's pocket at Bidinia. Anything that says Bidinia is probably me. Long story short. You can also find my TikTok. Laura, where can people find you on the internet should they wish to do so?
Well, they can find me at my professional website, lauraryan.org. They can also find out more about the podcast at mysistersatherapist.com. They can follow our Instagram page, My Sister's a Therapist. And if they want to join the 707 followers I currently have on TikTok, then they can follow my TikTok. I am Laura Ryan.
I remember a young lady who thought she was never going to get more than 500 followers. And here you are sitting pretty.
To be honest, I didn't have more than 500 followers for the last year. Somehow I've gotten an uptick. I think because I started doing lives. I think that is part of the TikTok world. If you start doing lives, then they'll just automatically show you to more people.
100%.
Which I don't understand. I don't know why they want us to do lives.
They want to create and foster this sense of community. Also, when you do lives, people can pay to send you flowers and stuff that you can then spend in the TikTok store. So it's all for TikTok enrichment.
I see. Virginia, if someone wants to send an email like Joseph has so kindly done, how would they go about doing that?
You can find us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you would like to hire us to do a talk at your pep rally or Costco or
Waterloo
dance competition or liquid death convention, you can write us.
Is there a liquid death convention?
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. You can write us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. Laura, this is the part of the show where you sometimes read an email or a comment that someone has left for us. And we love to get comments on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon. Do you have one to share this week?
I do. We actually got a very amusing email that I've decided to read today. This is from Noah F. The heading was Toxic, TALKSICK, Snossage. During a recent episode, Billionaire mentioned in passing reading penthouse letters. I don't know if that was a joke or actually true or both, but I thought I would share my own, admittedly never sent letter. It follows, Dear Penthouse, I thought this would never happen to me. And I was right. Love your podcast. Thank you, Noah.
Thank you, Noah. That's awesome. You know, Noah reminds me of the words of another great man, Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn.
A great man.
Who once said, we can make it, baby.
Me and you. Bye-bye.
Bye.